Oh, hey, Diane.
Hey, Rick. The Defiance owes you to a debt of gratitude. Rick, pretty cool to see you working with your daughter. Pretty hot.
Okay.
Please don't fuck my coworkers.
Hey, you called me. Yeah. This has been fun.
Welcome back to Nonsense. I'm Chris, and this is a breakdown of the Season 8 finale of Rick and Morty, Hot Rick. We open on Rick and Diane, out of breath from interspecies coitus. Already a joke since, in episode 2 of this season, Beth literally said,
Please don't fuck my coworkers.
And Diane's name is also kind of a reference to Bird Person's name, which is itself a joke since his whole species are birds. And her name is Diane, but her whole family and planet are bugs, which since most bugs lay eggs, it also makes me wonder what she's working with down there that's got Rick so interested. Anyways, she invites Rick to a barbecue with her parents and says she knows he's not over Diane or ready for anything serious. He says he doesn't remember much of Diane though since
The, thing evil me used to erase Diane everywhere, it f***s with your mind. Beth only thinks she remembers her mom.
which isn't a reveal per se, but is important context for us to understand how Rick remembers his whole life. Like imagine remembering your life with someone existing, but when you try to remember them, you just can't. That's heartbreaking. He feels emotionally exposed though, so he cuts off the conversation, and right as they start on round 2, we cut to the family, watching Cake or Fake, Celebrity Edition. Another entry in the Cake or Fake show, which has been funny.
Please, come on! You have to know! Do I not breathe? Do I not speak?
Give me the knife.
No! Oh my god, please! I'm not a cake!
But this time, the guest is Mr. Stabby, who is also a returning feature.
Let's get another question from the audience.
What do you say to people who say, I don't want to get stabbed, I want to go to a show?
Well, Gary, I have a right to arms and legs.
But do you have to take questions from the audience?
They didn't want it, they'd stop coming.
Your show has resulted in the deaths of 58,000 attendees.
You're talking about it.
And you'll never guess how this episode ends.
It was a real baby, not a cake, and Mr. Stabby's canceled now.
Rick walks in and Space Beth ribs on him for dating Diane, but Beth says,
Dad's too hung up on mom to ever commit.
meanwhile, Jerry's presumably watching Mr. Stabby murder that baby. But then he complains about Space Beth ribbing on Rick since he's like the nicest guy in the universe, which obviously confuses everyone, but Jerry lists off a bunch of clearly false memories about him, so Rick runs some tests and confirms that it's Memory Rick, who you remember from Season 5 Episode 8 is a sentient memory of Rick from Bird Person's mind, who Rick left trapped in a reality where everything is made of gears and springs. We see him in Jerry's memory of Beth's baby shower with a sign that just says, "Oh baby," Jerry's parents sitting back here. No theme song this time. We just cut to the title card and then continue in the memory of Beth giving birth to Morty, I assume, and Memory Rick being very supportive. Rick reiterates he's just a sentient memory that
Must have been inadvertently dumped into Jerry when we shuffled our brains last season.
obviously referencing this episode from Season 7. We then see Memory Rick driving the family home after the birth. He's driving a car made of gears and springs, which is funny, but I think he would never want to make something like that again after he escaped. Anyways, he gets sucked out of Jerry's brain and into a digital world, and Rick resets Jerry's memories back to normal, which makes Beth comment,
Amazing that you can just suck out an intrusive memory like that.
and Space Beth also makes a similar comment at the end,
Pretty impressive reset job.
which I think is part of a larger theme the show is trying to establish about Rick. He's always been obsessed with memory, which makes sense after what happened with Diane. He was always trying to find ways to regain his memories of her after Rick Prime wiped her from reality, and he seems to have regained a little slice, like he calls it. Anyways, Rick traps Memory Rick in what he calls an ant farm brain, but to me personally, it looks more like a desktop computer brain. Then the family walks out, and Memory Rick immediately gets to work on his escape plan, while Rick throws a few back. Beth worries he's lonely, but Space Beth reassured her,
He f***s things we can't even comprehend.
which is obviously Space Beth using terribly unhealthy logic. And Beth is just worried Rick lacks companionship. A sentiment Rick is clearly thinking about as he chugs a beer and suddenly decides to start working on something. He drops a bit of brain matter into this solution, but behind it we see some memory vials. And since we later see this takes place in the vault, it makes me wonder what memories are so bad they have to be secured like this. The brain matter expands and he tosses it into a laundry basket to carry. He then builds a case for it, doing something we very rarely see Rick do. Use a blueprint. He installs the brain matter, then solders a connector onto the case, and finally plugs it into his mind-reading machine, and writes himself a note that reads,
Dear Rick, you took the memory of Diane out of your head. You did this to be more emotionally open. Don't at me.
He then puts on the headset and starts the machine, entering his own mind. He travels through some sort of digital memory palace and visits his only remaining memory of Diane, while she's at a shooting range, where she seems to be really good. The context here is interesting though, because he does not seem to be part of the memory, so how could it be one of his memories? Obviously based on the second gun, and the way she looks at it for a moment here, she's missing him, but how could he remember it? Was he watching? I'm very curious, but I have no idea. He hesitates to do it, but initiates the removal of the memory, and leaves as it gets sucked out of his brain. Once awake, he reads the note and walks out, immediately calling Bug Ann to agree to go to her family barbecue. We cut to the next morning, and Beth is yawning walking into the garage to check on Memory Rick. But as soon as she activates the monitor, it sets off an alarm on the giant machine Memory Rick has built within the brain computer. So he starts his machine, and it causes some sort of electrical signal that imprints his consciousness into Beth's brain, not taking it over, but just moving into her memories. And she rejoins the family for breakfast. Bug Ann rings the doorbell to pick Rick up for the barbecue, and he introduces her to everyone before grabbing a coffee to go and eating one of Jerry's pancakes. And now that Jerry pointed it out, I have to play this clip every time they have pancakes.
Is someone requesting pancakes? Because it feels like we eat them all the time.
Rick eats Jerry's pancake while explaining he took the memory of Diane out of his head, and everybody freaks out about it. We then see Memory Rick in Beth's memory of this very scene, hearing that Rick took Diane out of his head and deciding to break her out of her brain computer. He sneaks up into older memories through a vent that wasn't there a moment earlier, crawling through the vent to Beth's memory of her Rick walking out on her. And he does look basically exactly like Rick Prime, and has one of the older generation portal guns. Once he leaves, Memory Rick crashes through the ceiling and gets Beth excited, saying he's staying with her. And then he gets my favorite bit from the episode.
We're gonna have so much fun together, sweetie. Yay! Then we'll save your mother from a secret underground memory prison.
We then cut to Bug Ann's home planet, where we see they're setting up for some kind of festival. And it's being set up around what looks kind of like termite or other bugs' pointy mounds. There are crowds cheering, and this is nothing like a family barbecue I've ever been to. But maybe family barbecues are different when you're a bug, and Rick seems to be having a good time with everyone. There's a piano player back here and a bug being roasted here. Bug Ann points out her ex-boyfriend who's bending a bug part from a bowl full of delicious insect body parts. Bug Ann's parents walk over and she introduces them to Rick. He seems nervous, but they welcome him warmly, and her dad comments that Rick has known his daughter for a very long time. To which Rick makes the mistake of responding.
I have, though Bug Ann and I have only been hooking up for a few months.
What?
And it turns out her culture doesn't allow premarital sex, and now Rick has to duel her ex-boyfriend in a giant arena, which makes this line from Bug Ann's mom earlier especially funny.
Bromphamites give us bugs a bad name. Such a violent culture.
But the duel doesn't have to be to the death, at least. The rules are just that they have to duel till either one dies or just gives up. But if you give up,
You admit you are incapable of love and commitment.
Bug Ann complains Rick didn't get to know her culture at all before coming, and he complains about the ritualistic violence, but she asks him not to kill her ex. Also, the platform they're on is shaped like a giant bug head, which is pretty badass. Her ex yells,
Fight me, slut!
before attacking, and we cut to Memory Rick going through Beth's memories and adding in training and brainwashing to get her to break into Rick's safe and free Memory Diane from her computer brain. He's in her memory of detention specifically, proctored by Beth's cool dad, explaining the layout of the sub-basement while she practices safe cracking. He also says Summer must have a key card to get in since she does chores for Rick, setting that up for later. We then see Beth's memory of Diane picking her up, and we see that Rick was right. There's a fuzzy green blob where Diane is supposed to be. Before she heads out, though, Memory Rick makes her repeat her brainwashing phrase.
Mom is trapped in a box in the sub-basement. I'm the only one who can save her. This is how we stay a family.
In the next memory, she practices pickpocketing so she can get the keycard off Summer. He then trains her on how to fight, all while making her constantly repeat the brainwashing phrase. Meanwhile, Beth is actually slicing up some celery and talking to Space Beth when Summer walks in from doing chores for Rick, saying,
Piranha plants are in heat again. Oops,
and that moment is obviously where Beth pickpocketed Summer for the key, even though it's not explicitly stated. Beth puts the sliced up celery in a bowl while asking Summer about parts of the sub-basement where Rick keeps important stuff. And Summer tells her the safe is on level 7 before suggesting they watch a movie, which both Beths agree to, and Beth just leaves the sliced up celery there. We then cut to her doing a back widow landing into level 7 of the sub-basement and using Summer's keycard to get into the safe. She puts the mind helmet on, and Memory Rick enters the mind computer to see Diane. They run at each other and make out a bit before he invites her out, and she immediately agrees. They re-enter Beth's mind, and as she gets up, we finally get a full shot of this crazy-looking coffin with red gems on it, a padlock and a chain held together by a strange glowing green thing. And I am dying to know what this thing is. I've racked my brain and Googled, image searched, even read through the Reddit discussion thread for the episode in case somebody else figured it out, but I found nothing, so I am open to theories in the comments. Anyways, Space Beth walks in and confronts her for acting weird, but Beth just references some of her fake memories. Space Beth realizes it must have something to do with Memory Rick, and Beth tricks her into walking out first before trying to knock her out with the brain computer. But Beth has a metal skeleton now, so it doesn't hurt her, and the two start fighting until Beth snaps her neck and runs away. We cut back to Memory Rick and Memory Diane in one of Beth's memories after he's explained everything, including that she is a conscious memory. And I love that Bud chair still had a gear and a spring in it. Rick says they should already be back in the brain computer Rick trapped him in, revealing that was his only other goal. He just didn't want to be stuck in there all alone. He runs out to check on Beth, and Diane walks around, running into radicalized Beth training with knives. That sneaks up on her and threatens her, and Diane reveals they're both just memories, causing this memory to turn into a memory Beth with her own will and consciousness. She then runs away and into Rick, and they run back to the pod together. Rick gets angry she revealed to Beth that she was a memory, and says they've already put a lot of strain on Beth's brain when he brainwashed her into rescuing Diane, which makes her pretty upset, and Memory Rick says,
Aw, our first fight.
And we cut back to the arena, and Rick is obviously just cleaning house. He decides to just leave though, so he portals back into the safe to put the memory of Diane back since he realized it was a mistake. But instead he finds Space Beth and manages to fix her neck. He then realizes this must be Memory Rick's doing, and checks on him, only to find him gone. We cut back to Beth driving alone some kind of canyon road and clearly losing her mind, as she keeps repeating her brainwashing phrase. Meanwhile, Memory Rick and Diane are making their way to Beth's recent memories, so we see the family out front during the Matrix episode, while Morty is working on his tank, then the Easter episode where Jerry's becoming more bunny-like, then the de-aged Beth's episode, who make an appearance later on. We then see that Memory Beth is now waking up and creating other Memory Beths, all with the goal of killing Memory Rick. We cut back to Beth while Rick and Space Beth have caught up to her. She chucks a soda at them with impressive accuracy. And we cut back to Memory Rick sneaking past Rick in Beth's memory of earlier this episode. They wind up getting jumped by all the Memory Beths though, even the de-aged Beths. They manage to escape though and get into the car with Beth in the memory of her running away after snapping Space Beth's neck, and manage to escape just in time. But Memory Rick reveals he doesn't even have a plan, and that if Rick catches them they'll probably die. Beth is losing her mind at this point, so she decides to just run the car off the cliff while screaming her brainwashing phrase. Obviously, Rick saves her though, and Space Beth jumps down to help, but Beth just attacks her and they fight until the car gets to the ground and Beth's head starts aching and she collapses. Space Beth tries to help her, but she just goes for her pistol and puts it to her own head, saying she just wants the voices to stop. In her mind, Memory Rick gets caught by the Memory Beths, and they're about to kill him when they get interrupted by seeing the live memory of Rick approaching Beth and the two sharing this really heartfelt moment.
I wasn't there for you, and someone took advantage of that, but I'm here now. Your real dad is here, Beth, and he's more emotionally open.
And him being vulnerable like this allows her to feel safe enough to embrace him, and even though he knocks her out for her own safety, it doesn't change the truth behind what he said. Rick has grown, and it shows in his relationship with the Beths. He's not the hardened, isolated figure who doesn't care about anybody that we met in Season 1. I'm not sure any animated comedy has ever had such a strong character arc before. Anyways, Rick incapacitated her, and we cut to her in the brain helmet thing and tied up on a chair. She's sad she can't remember her mom, and Rick regrets she can't remember Diane, but reminds her that nobody remembers her thanks to Rick Prime, saying,
Even I only had a scrap of her.
And I'm curious how he managed to get that scrap, honestly. But he wipes Beth of her memories of Memory Rick, and the two join everyone for dinner. Morty asks,
What happened to Memory Rick?
To which Rick just says,
He's gone.
Which everybody's sad about, saying he was really nice. Rick gets mad and storms off, saying he's going to see Bug Ann. But in reality, he's taking Memory Rick and Memory Diane out into deep space to live eternally in a brain-computer digital reality flying through space, under the condition that they never bother him again. In a way, giving Rick and Diane a happy ending that he'll never get to experience. A reality that is incredibly difficult to process, so Rick understandably says,
So I'm gonna mind blow myself and forget this ever happened. You're on your own.
Before they all say goodbye and Rick blasts them off into eternity. Rick checks his messages and sees that Bug Ann saw but didn't reply to his message, but at least he's finally let go of Diane, and maybe now he can accept a real happy ending for himself with the life he's built. We skip through the credits and see Mr. Poopy Pants himself doing one of his classic post-season cutscenes, but from the inside of a padded room. The scientists wonder who he's talking to, and his wife insists she has proof he's not from this dimension, but replaced her real husband. They ask her what she wants to do with him, and we cut on a devious cliffhanger. That's all for this breakdown, though. I've still got plenty of episodes to break down from this season, and I'm almost done with last week's episode. Once I'm done with all of them, I'm going to be doing a complete Season 8 breakdown, updated with the details I've gotten in the comments from everyone. So if you notice anything I missed, please leave it in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.
We're gonna have so much fun together, sweetie.
Yay!
Then we'll save your mother from a secret underground memory prison.